Let's welcome our next speaker for the day. His name is Hitesh Prajapati. Hitesh is an automation lead at PMC Retail, and today he would be speaking on harnessing Java's reflective nature to fast-track Cucumber script development. To know more about him and to see his video script, please check out the link below. I would now like to request Mr. Hitesh to take over and continue with his presentation.
Hello, I hope you are able to see me and hear me as well.
Yes, Hitesh, you're visible. Welcome. How are you?
again. How are you guys? How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, it's a pretty chill weather in Bangalore.
The last time we spoke, it was raining.
Really, yeah. Yes. Can I check your screen share?
Let me share my screen. Let me know.
Yes, you're audible and I can see your screen. Yeah, still yours, Hitesh. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So let me go back first. So before I start, let me just give you guys a brief introduction about myself. So this is Hitesh Prajapati. I have been into this industry for almost 7 years now. And from technology standpoint, I've worked with different tools, technologies, Selenium, Appium, TrueTractor, Cypress, WebDriver, IO, and all. And I am more of a community person, so I'm associated with AT as well in past and right now as well. And that is the reason I guess I'm here. I've been into different, challenges and championships as well. So let's just move on to the main part because this is going to be a very interesting talk. So I'm going to speak about a topic which is around Java reflection and how we can create our automation script and more of a framework wherein we are leveraging cutting edge concepts to decrease the development effort. So we are not going to focus on actually decreasing the execution time because that is something that most guys do, but we are not here for that. Okay, so the topic name is harnessing Java's reflective nature to fast-track Cucumber script development. As it says that we are going to use the core concept of Java reflection to develop the automation scripts, but we'll be leveraging Cucumber as well just to have a flavor of it. So let's first look at the agenda for today. So we are just going to go through one problem statement first. Followed by we'll look at the different solutions. So what I've done is I have gathered a couple of solutions that is the normal people would be doing, or even myself as well when I started this, or when I was looking at Cucumber and Java based frameworks, I do that way as well. So I tried putting different solutions or different approaches that people might be using or might have used in past to showcase the trade-off between the solution that I've developed and the way anyone can develop. So that is what we are going to talk next. Third one would be more of a challenges because of course, building a solution like this does not come that easy. It has been a lot of research, a lot of, time invested into building this and lots of challenges as well. So we are going to speak about that as well. Then we'll look at the demo. Effort analysis, that would be more of the development effort that was being taken earlier before the solution and what it is now being taken in the latest solution. That is what we are going to look at. And it would be at the end, we'll just look at the Q&A. So just to help you guys, this session would be more on talking on a high level on the solution that is built, not a lot of in-depth, because that the core core programming and core solution is so deep. I think I'll let ATA guys decide when to have another seminar or workshop on just to this, but we'll just look at the high level thing. Okay, so before moving on to problem statement, I'd like to help you guys with the technology stacks. So what I've used in developing this solution is more of Java, TestNG, Selenium, and Cucumber. I think these are the normal thing that people use, and I just wanted to keep it that way to have you guys interested into this one. So this is what I have used. Also feel free to stop me if you guys feel like I'm going too fast, but conscious of time I should be. Okay, So let's talk about the problem statement. So let me just help you guys understand how the solution actually came into my mind. So I had a client, I have a client who is working on a logistic domains. They have couple of pages which has similar UI, similar components, not even couple of, if I have to tell you guys, it would be somewhere around 20 pages. And what a person do as a part of normal automation is that they create pages for most of the page that is there. They develop the step definitions, they develop the cucumber files as well. But what I have understood that it might have taken a lot of time for us to build the same solution. So what I did is I invested my time into creating one solution which is more into cucumber centric, and rather than actually looking at the page objects and all sort of thing. So the solution and the problem statement that you guys are seeing is actually created by my own self. You might not find it on the internet. So it says that to develop a generic model-based solutions in which page automation is driven by BDD scripts. So generally what people do is they start with developing page objects. They use the page objects into test script step definitions, and then step definitions are glued to cucumber scripts. But no, that is not going to be the case in this solution. We are doing other way around, which we'll see on the later stage. So let's talk about traditional approaches. Let's understand that whoever is at the beginner level might start with something like this. So for this demo purpose, what I've done is I've used one open source application, which is Orange HRM, just to build a small solution. So if you guys want to do a login and do a couple of updates on profile page, this is a typical thing that anyone will start, including myself. So I'm not an exception. So this is how people will start writing their feature files. If you look at the step definition, it could be similar, something like this. So this is one of the approach that I think people, or including myself in the beginning days, will be using it. So just have a keen eye on how the things changes, because what we are going to do is we are going to use the same thing to develop our solution as well. So the first traditional approach that anyone can think of on the first instances. Now let's look at the another one. Now what happens is that you do a couple of things into one function. So for an example, instead of entering username password and having a two separate Gherkin steps, what you do is you create club them into one, and then you do the login step. Similarly, what other things that a person can do is that rather than writing similar steps for individual fields, what you end up doing is you create a data table wherein you mention the name of the field and the value. This is the another way. I think this is a high level thing, and there are lots of things that has to go behind the scenes to actually find those elements and do the job. But what generally people would be doing is that they read this data table, they get the field name, and once they get the first name, they try to get the locator or maybe an element from the page object, and then do send keys to enter this text. And this is another approach, and maybe the code would look like similar to this, more of a step definition where you guys are using data table to read this table and do whatever you want. So I haven't added anything from a code perspective, because that's not what we are going to talk about. So this is more of a traditional approach that I can think of. Anyone have any question before I move on to the next phase, which is more of our developed solutions? Let me see if I can bring up this as well. All right. Okay. Silence is golden then. All right. Let's move on to the next part, which is more of a challenges. So before we talk about how it was developed, my concern would be more of to help you introduce with the challenges, and then we'll look at how it was developed. So in the traditional approach, what used to happen is you might have to create a lot of same file, which is page object, step definition for small thing. You might be duplicating them. You might be using some common function, but still you will have to keep doing and writing the same code or maybe similar code into your framework, be it a page object, step definitions, or anything. Second challenge was a static data. So I think in an QA world, everyone knows that static data won't give any return on investment and won't find bug after some time. So the another challenge would be of static data and how do we manage that. So what we introduce is the dynamic data, wherein we are actually looking at how to create the dynamic database every time we run it. So that is the second challenge. Again, as you guys are going to write these things multiple times, these page objects and step definitions, definitely it will increase the development efforts as well and scalability. So if you have a lot of pages, I think even a similar pages, if you keep duplicating your code, you won't be able to scale it to a level when it start to grow into a massive application. So that would be another challenge in a traditional approach. And a maintenance, again, scalability maintenance goes hand in hand, because if something comes up in a future where components gets changed, now you have to change your underlying logic. And that is a very crucial point, because when we develop or create a framework, we just have to be very much conscious about how we are creating our frameworks and whether we are considering the maintenance portion or not. So this, everything that you see here is actually been removed from the developed approach. So we will start looking at that now. So how the developed solution looks like. Now, this is a snippet of a feature file that I've created, wherein what I did is I'm using the similar thing. So what we are generally defining is a data table where we are going to mention the field name, whatever it is, be it a username, password for login. What is the type of a field, whether it's an input, date, select to, select, checkbox, whatever. You guys have to define it here as well. And then the value. There are a couple of things that we have to be very conscious is that how do we manage this thing. So there are a couple of constants that I have to introduce so that people can understand how the randomization is handled. Okay. So by looking at this table, we get to know that we are going to enter, username with this value and password with this value. But sorry, the interesting point would be more on this one, this table, wherein you are seeing the similar things, but over here we have got multiple areas, and also we have mentioned the random. So whenever we are specifying value as in random, which is something that I have defined in my logic, that when something like this random word keyword comes up in your data table, what I do is I generate a random on a runtime based on the type of field. So now you must be wondering how the data will be defined. That for first name, because if it's a mobile number or a phone number, you might want to have that phone number rather than any random string, which we'll look at. Everything is defined in underlying logic, but what happens is this is something that tells our framework or our solution to what to do with certain controls and certain kind of inputs and the data. And this is how our developed solution looks like. Let's talk about the advantages. Again, whatever the disadvantages was in previous one would become the advantages into this one. Okay, ease of use. I think I'll show you guys why I have written this. Decrease development effort, because your underlying code, which is on page object or step definition, still remains same because it has been developed on component level. When I say component level, it would be more of input, text boxes, maybe radio boxes, select to drop downs, date picker and all. It won't be coupled with your page objects. It is actually defining by that way. So that is a generalized method. Randomized and static data, I think this gives you a ease of providing a static data as well. So if we go back again, over here, we can see that we have given a static data, but over here, we are asking our framework to generate a random data on a runtime. Okay. Let's look at another thing, increase scalability. I think with this solution, no matter how many pages that I'm going to build in future, or no matter how big the application gets, your underlying code has been tested n number of times, and there's few things that you have to modify to get your things running. So that in that way, both of the things goes hand in hand, increase scalability and minimal maintenance. So that is how those are some good advantage. Okay, I like to be funny. So now let's just look at the demo. Let me just drop my presentation and share the code. Just give me a moment. Can anyone confirm if you guys are able to see my?
Yes, Hitesh. Yes.
Okay. So yeah,
Hitesh, can you increase the font size? Wait. So
Sorry?
that, can you increase the font size?
Oh, I'll have to do it here. Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah. So that it will be better readable for the audience.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me how many size do you want? 16?
Go for 16. Yes, I think this is better.
Okay, perfect. So I think this is a similar thing. So what we are doing is we are just logging into a system. It goes to some pages and it does these things. That is what I have defined. Okay, so let's first look at the demo and then we'll talk about the underlying structure. So let me just quickly run it. And just so you guys are aware, I think this is something that I built it this morning because the solution that I have built was for a client and it was so big that I could not incorporate everything here and I cannot show those things into present because of ISO things and all. But just allow me 2 minutes just to fire up. Okay. I'll just bring in the Chrome to the other side. I hope you guys are able to see the Chrome as well.
Yes.
So now what it is going to do is it's just going to log into this. And this is all driven by Cucumber and not driven by page objects or something. So you tell Cucumber what to do, or you define in Cucumber what your script is supposed to be doing, and then underlying things will take care of. So right now you're seeing the data. I think everything is random. Nothing is. So next time you run it, you won't get the same data. Okay. There's a small demo that I've prepared just for this presentation purpose, but the framework is much more larger than what we are discussing right now. So this is how. So I'll just show you guys one log, more of few things. So as you can see, we have inserted. So if you look at this table, what I'm doing is I'm converting into some model. So you might remember model as in getters and setters and all sort of things. So there's a similar thing, but instead I've used record models to do the job. So here you can see that the username is converted here, input, what is the data, and then similar things for the second table. If you look at the second table, wherein everywhere we have mentioned random and at the end click. So nothing is stored as in on a page object which says that get save button dot click. It's nothing like that. It's just that if I define click, which means that my framework knows that for this particular element, I have to fire up click event. And for this, because it's an input, we have to do a send keys. So as you can see, for a first name, the random value that got generated is Ruby, middle name this. This data are being generated using a tool and a regex, similar to that, this one as well, and this. So that's how the whole thing has been developed. Before we get more into the detail, let's just look at few other parts, and maybe then I'm sure there are a lot of people who might be having a lot of questions. So I want to attend to them as well. So let's look at the anatomy. That is an important part, how it was defined or designed. Okay, so what are the three major components? Feature files, page object, step definition. Feature files, we just have looked at it. Then we develop step definition, page objects. These are the standard thing that everyone does. Okay, now what are the different things? What we have done is created an object repository. So this object repository is more of an enum. And it's not just a normal enum, it's an advanced enum where we are overriding the default behavior of enum, which is just not defining one thing which you see is the first name, but we are overriding it with some parameter wherein I'm storing the label. So if first name that you are seeing here is stored as in first parameter for this enum. For this input, the locator is stored here, as you can see, by.name. What is the field type? So when I pass in input as a text, what my framework does it reads this, convert it to a enum type. So it will get this value. And at the end, there are models that I've created where I'm mentioning that I'm using a faker data model, Java faker, which helps us generate the random data. But over here, I have to define what class you want to use from Faker library and which function. Now, this is the place where reflection kicks in. Now, simply defining this, I mean, most of the people might have used Faker. So it's a Faker dot name dot first name, but that is not it. If you want to do it on a runtime, how do you do it? So what I do generally is that with this class, I create an instance of this object and then calling the invoke method to get call this first name and then get the return value. So this is happening on a runtime. It's not something that we have defined in the function, but this everything that you see here happens on a runtime level. So like I mentioned, I've been using Java Faker, and everything together builds the solution, and this helper is something which does this all. So if you can see add, update, delete. For an example, you have similar control and you just want to create a couple of methods called add, update, delete. That's it. Every time you add something, you call this function, pass in the model, you are done with it. So you don't have to keep changing it. Now, when you want to change this, when there are new controls, like new field types are being introduced on your UI. For an example, select to is changed by something else. You might have to just add a switch condition for another control, you are done. Other than that, everything is converted and transformed on a runtime. Okay. Now, effort analysis, I think this is a very interesting part. So this analysis was based on the client's project that I was working on. So they had a table structure wherein all the facility was there, add, update, delete, filter, short, and whatnot. So earlier we were taking somewhere around, so they're not just one column, they're almost like 20 to 30 or 50 columns in a single table. Now just imagine automating them in a page level would, add a lot of days into your development effort. So this is an analysis from that. So what was happening earlier was that it was taking somewhere around 3 or 4 if we don't get any issues. But when I developed this, it was 1 to 2 days. But if I have to tell you now, my peers are using the solution and they are taking 2 hours to develop this. For any new pages which has a similar component, they just took 2 hours to develop this. Just imagine the amount of time that you are saving, which means that you can actually work parallelly with the developer on a sprint. They release something, you build something, and you at the end of the day you run it. So that is the important area that I want to highlight, because in an everyday life, automation is not just doing small thing or automating 1 or 2 controls. At the end of the day, we should start thinking like a developer and how it adds value to the business as well and to the client as well. So this is just a traditional versus developed analysis from the client that I have showcased. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our session. I think I might have been overrun by a couple of minutes, but yeah. Okay, so again, I'm sure you guys might like Star Trek, and this is my favorite character. So yeah, I mean, open for questions. Let me just drop off my sharing.
Should I read the questions for you, Hitesh?
Sorry?
Should I read the questions for you?
Yeah. I think I have just opened up the chat section as well.
Okay. I'll read for you one, okay? The question from Gaurav Kurana. Hey, Gaurav. Nice to see you. The question is, what if there are multiple fields for a single step? Do we give input field type for each attribute?
Just 1 minute. So it's Gaurav Kurana. Actions are predefined. Can we put mouse over, etc. over there? That is the one.
The one above.
Okay, sorry. What if there are multiple fields for a single step? Do we give input field type for each attribute? See that ideally, if you have multiple, for an example, first name comes twice for in a sectional way. So sometimes what happens is, if in an enum world, if you define same kind of enums, it will throw an error. So you just have to update few things here and there, maybe change it, as in you can have a more of a static enum again, enum under enum, more of a hierarchy, and then you can use nest that as well and then define it. So that is how you can do it. I'm not sure. Gaurav, I think, are you happy with the answer, or you want to refine me as well?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So sometimes like we want to repeat a step, right? So we use that data table when we want to repeat a full test case for a different data set, or sometimes we want to just do a validation over and over again for the same step. So we write below it that what are
Yeah,
the
that is a scenario outlines. It's not a more of a data. It's a scenario outline where we tell Cucumber to run the same thing for multiple set of row. For an example, let's take one example wherein login scenario. You have a multiple roles of login. So what you do is you put username and login at the bottom, and then keep those few things that you want to do as is. That also generates random data, and for every time it picks a new user credentials. So that is also possible.
Okay, so in this case where you have given first name, last name, so let's say there is a form submission and I want to repeat it say 5 times. So should I write first name, like how do I repeat that step 5 times, that first name, last name? Because generally we give various values and write it one after the other.
Yeah, I think you can do that. So there are multiple ways. So one way is you could do, because you are defining for the table structure in your data table for one scenario, right? So it will generate random at that moment. But if you want to define it in scenario outline, this whole table will be transformed there. And what you do generally, let me just share my screen so that, I can at least show you guys that. Let me know if you are able to see it.
Yes, I can see.
For an example, what you are trying to say is that you want to do something called scenario outline, and then you want to transform this to this so that you can run it for multiple times. That is what, right?
No, let me clarify it. Yeah, I just want to do like whatever you have written, first name, middle name, and last name.
Yeah.
So I want to repeat this step 2 times. Like this will run only once, right?
Yeah. So sometimes, when you develop something, what happens is you have to just do something differently. Maybe you can introduce one step and I run this for time something. And what you do is you put examples here. So there are limitation always for something, but then you can get your things work around. Like for an example, what will I say is more of counter, and then you can just define 1 and 2 and 3. So obviously it is going to run the same thing multiple times. So number of rows that you put into this, you might use this counter here, maybe an index. Sorry, my mistake. You can put something like this here, and then you can get your job done. You can run it multiple times, and every time this block of code is getting executed, the data would be random as well, because you want to drive it through this. If I transform this to here, which means that we won't be able to have that proper map of this data. Either you define the values and put the names here, or you do it this way. It's just a workaround if based on your problem statement. I hope this helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. What is the second question? I think, Ravi, do let me know if I'm overrunning.
No, we have 3 more minutes, and after your we have a break, so I can go for 2 more minutes after your slot.
Okay, good. I have that benefit now.
Yes.
Last time I had the same thing as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Another one is from Gunesh. How do you see this fitting in Canvas-based application, drag and drop, flow builder apps? I think, see, this is more of a web application. It does not matter what kind of or what technology it has been built in. When we work with Selenium or something, what we care is identifying locators and get things done. So if I can show just few insight that will help you guys understand what happens behind the scenes. Okay. So there's an area where I mentioned that it has been defined everything in this. So you don't have to maintain a page objects. And the actual part is here. Since it was just a small project that I wanted to build, what I have done is I have added a lot of conditions here. If it's an input, so input type, you do it that way. on my project, what I have done is I have had switch or if else condition where it checks whether the current input type is of different component, be it sliders as well, be it what tables, whatever. You can just define and do the job inside of that, and you don't have to change anything else. So tomorrow, if there are new components that is being introduced, so for an example, what I do is either I do else if and say the same thing. I just copy paste here. Okay, and what I do is if the type that we see here, everything is enum based because you have to do something or you have to define something at your at some level. So what you do is you want to do it for maybe date, and then you just automate that control. That is it. This code is not bound with any pages. It is bound with the controls. So when you give something from this, it knows what to do rather than being attached to a particular page. So that is how it works. So I hope I have answered that question, Gunesh. Can confirm?
Yeah, but the only thing is the product owners or other people, I mean, in terms of defining this, right? So if they have a requirement, they won't be doing it so much in detail, correct? They don't care what type of data you test it with. They just want the requirement to be done. So then that refining part, which happens after that, right? So how
Yeah.
does it, yeah, how does it align in this?
So I think, see, if they are not worried about static or dynamic data, I don't know. I mean, it's them they are who are not worried. But as an automation tester, I think what I feel is you should always add random days to your test, and that is the reason this solution exists. But if it is completely driven by client, or we just want to keep it on a lower level, you can define it in the normal traditional way. But for any new things that you feel like what you mentioned is canvas based application and drag and drop, this still fits in. You just have to, you can add one more action. So in an action column where I mentioned click, you can mention that as well. It's just that the deeper the knowledge of your coding levels are, I think it will be easier for you to develop. That is it. I think what I'm going to do is I'll try. I think I have this uploaded in my GitHub. I'll see whether it's public or not, and then we'll make it public and share it across. Maybe you guys can give it a try as well, and come back to me with any questions. I'm there on LinkedIn, Slack, wherever you guys want to reach out to me, and we can, I can help you guys on to develop those things as well.
Yeah. And how was the parallel performance? Have you tested, like, because I see a lot of if-else, so
Yeah,
I'm not
parallel.
entirely
So
sure
you
about
have seen just a lot of if-else, but majority of code inside of that is Lambda functions. So you have just few things if-else, but a lot of things happens on a Lambda function. So the performance of the Lambda function is so good that it works like a charm. So for my application, the client application, my automation code was faster than their response time. So sometime it was finishing, the whole suite was finishing somewhere around 1 hour, and sometime it is on 30 minutes. So it adjusts to those things as well. So synchronization is handled that way as well. Yeah.
Okay. If you make it public, just let us know so that we
Yeah,
can.
sure. What I'm going to do is after this, I'll stay here on this call for a couple of minutes, and then we'll make it public and then share it across.
Thanks so much.
So, Hitesh, so how do you share? Okay, people, I see the request coming in for that kit. Okay, for this code. So, where will you be sharing that?
So I'm going to make it public. I'm going to send the link here in the chat section only.
Chat. Okay. Yeah. So let me know. Okay, once you do that. Okay, so that I can make it much more spread about.
Accessible.
Okay?
Yeah.
Accessible. Okay, I'll do that. So. Okay. We can go for 2 more minutes. Okay, as it's a break, and we see the questions coming in. I think we can take that. Okay.
How to close a browser after that entire suite execution, not after every scenario as normally hooks. I have got it. I am managing this from using TestNG. So what I've done is I have 2 hooks that is being used. One is on a before suite, wherein whatever I want to do it on a global or system level, I do that. And for this particular purpose, I have done it on a test level, which is an before test or after test. What it does is before test and after test is aligned with Cucumber, wherein if you have 10 feature files and 100 scenarios, it will not close for every feature or every scenario. It will stay for the entire execution. And once everything is done, the control goes on to after test. It does the tier down, and then it closes off. So that is how I have designed it this way. If you want to do it for scenario based, I think if you have an independent scenario, see, if you have an independent scenario, that is fine. You can define it on a before and after hooks of Cucumber, but it's completely the design choice that a person makes. I don't like to keep bringing browser up and down for every scenario, because it takes some time. It's your resources as well, just to fire that up. So that is what my philosophy on this point. So I hope I have answered that question, Sweta.
So without TestNG, it is not possible?
It is possible. It is possible. See, for TestNG, we have got these hooks. For JUnit, we have different hooks. It's a runner that I'm using, but that does not change the code, or that does not affect anywhere the whole solution is developed. It's just a setup and tier down, right? It does not have to do anything with our solution that I've developed. It is just a choice. We just have to find out which hook works for the framework that we are using.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I think Gaurav has answered that as well in a different way. I hope.
Yes. Good that Hitesh, you got some time.
Yeah, I think for this particular topic, even if I keep 2 hours or something, it would be very small, because there are lots of things that is happening. There are Java fakers, there are easy random to generate an instance of a particular class that I have defined for a faker, and then invoke the method. And not only that, for a method which accepts parameters, you have to define it differently as well. So it's a really good thing. I think I'm very much proud of being this, creating this solution and how it works. I think my peers are like, they are just spending 2 hours and the automation is done. So I'm very much happy seeing these things.
Yeah, the demo is always good.
Yeah.
Demo is always good, and when the demo runs, it's much good. Yes. Okay. With that, audience, it's a good talk from Hitesh, as always, and I did enjoy. Yeah, I see the screen coming up here. Mrinmay, it's you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, continue, Mrinmay.
Yeah. Thank you, Hitesh. It was an informative session. Thank you for that.